The theme of this panel discussion is Finance in the Era of Big Data and AI. And we will learn how to navigate through opportunities and challenges with the help of our 4 panelists.
So, in a roaring applause, please help me welcome our first panelist,
our own keynote speaker who surpasses all introductions. Please help me welcome Mr. Adnan Yusuf Qazi again on stage.
In your huge round of applause, help me welcome our second panelist, Mr. Mac Sayed.
Mr. Mac Sayed is president and founder of Wahjoc Group of Companies. He has 35 years of extensive experience in the energy sector, and he possesses in-depth knowledge of front, middle, and back office processes across a wide range of energy products. He also exhibits exceptional proficiency in various ETRM and risk systems.
Help us welcome our other brilliant panelist. In your huge round of applause, please help me welcome Mr. Adil Manke.
Mr. Adil Manke is a technology and business leader with 16 plus years of diverse experience in global and local management across different technology domains. He is a CEO of Deta Pilot, dedicated to showing how technology acts as a power driver for value creation and scaling businesses for sustainable growth.
Let's make some noise and show our appreciation with a hearty applause for our 4th panelist, Dr. Umair Haroon.
Dr. Umair Haroon is a qualified chartered accountant and an associate professor in LUMS. He is also director of the master's program in accounting and analytics and coordinator of accounting and finance here Group. He plays a pivotal role in shaping the educational landscapes by teaching a wide range of courses.
Now for the man of the hour, the expert in his field, our panel moderator, Mr. Mohsin Jamil.
Mr. Mohsin Jamil is not only the digital consulting partner at KPMG and NRC member, but he is also the lead partner for the Digital Advisory Pakistan. With a practical focus on data and analytics, he has 20 years of experience in audit, advisory, and credit risk management across Pakistan, United Kingdom, and Ireland. He has a specialization in data strategy, data governance, finance transformation, and intelligence automation.
Once again, in a big round of applause for all of the panelists and the moderator, over to you, Mr. Mohsin.
Thank you very much. It's an absolute pleasure to have all of you here, along with such a knowledgeable, talented, and successful panelists we have today. We'll try to spend next hour or so discussing, although I think it was very insightful keynote, and I think you've discussed most of the stuff, so I think my job is certainly made easy. So we'll be discussing the role of AI and data analytics and how these forces are reshaping our lives, our businesses, our processes, our profession. We'll discuss some more use cases, some examples. We'll certainly discuss challenges and opportunities it brings to us, and how we're going to cope with those challenges, how we're going to grab those opportunities within our profession. We'll also discuss how you guys can equip yourself to be ready for the challenge in the future. So looking forward to the discussion. But before we dive into the discussion, let me share with you an example of how powerful data could be if you know how to use it. So because I work in a data practice, so that's what most likely I'm talking about. So back in 2016, I was introduced to an investment firm based out of Oxford in England, and they were managing a quant fund. It was a unique concept to me, but very interesting. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with the quant fund or not, but that fund was very unique in a number of ways. The two very unique aspects of facts about the fund was, since inception, that fund didn't make any loss. So the fund was either making money or it was at break even. Even during the subprime crisis, 2007, 2008, when all the banks, big banks were losing money, that fund was making money. That's very, very, very unique thing. And I was quite impressed. And second, at that time, when I was not very much, knowledgeable about the data, The unique thing was all the investment decisions were made by computer, not investment professionals. So everything, all the investment decisions are made by computer. And how did they do it? So I spoke to the CEO, and what they did do is they gathered huge amount of data about all the stocks from the US market, UK market. They gathered the massive amount of data, historical data, and then how those stocks would react to events around the world, whether it's a social events, economic events, oil prices, you name it. Huge amount of data, right? And then, so the reason they were based in Oxford was they wanted to hire the finest of the PhDs from the Oxford University. So most of the professionals working there were either mathematicians or statisticians, PhDs from Oxford. They gave that data to those people and tasked them to come up with a model which can predict prices, which can predict how the stock's going to react. So those guys worked on those models for how many days? There was, I'm sure Adnan would explain in a bit more detail, but there was testing on the data, they were training the model, they were fine-tuning it. At the end of the day, when they went live, so that fund was launched back in 2006, 2007, right? So around 10 years, that's a huge amount of time. So imagine, we're now talking about AI and data, and those guys were back in 2006. They developed a model to make money. So that just shows you how powerful data could be if you know how to use. And that's what we're going to do here in this panel discussion, to make you aware what data can bring you. So when you go back to your organization, when you become a CFO of the company, so you are well equipped with that knowledge. So when these guys come to you to pitch you or implement a data platform, so you help them rather than become a roadblock. So with that, let's start our discussion, Adnan, with you first. So you explained most of the stuff, but I'll still ask the question. You've been working in data space for a number of years. I personally know you have solved a number of problems in healthcare, in finance, in banking industry, even sports. I mean, you're helping golfers. So you talked about AI. Let's talk about both AI and data analytics, right? How they are correlated. Can AI exist without data? Is it possible? And secondly, what are some of the real-time, real-world usage of these two forces in current era? Especially, maybe if you can talk a little bit about Gen AI also. Thank you.
Hello. Am I audible now? Great, thank you. Thank you, Mohsen. Two questions actually. One is about Gen AI and how they are being used to solve real-world problems. And the first question was more around, can AI be done without data? Like how data analytics and AI. So I'll answer the first one first. No, so AI cannot be done without the data, right? So data analysis is the first step. So you would have known that, if you go back 5 years in Pakistan, and if you go back 15 years in the US or Western areas, everybody was talking about BI, which was business intelligence, right? Nobody was talking about AI to an extent that we are talking today, right? So BI is business intelligence, which is all about using the data, integrating the data, making sense of the data, running reports, running analysis, trying to identify patterns at a very high level, and then making informed decisions based on those integrated data sets, right? So that's AI is different in a sense that AI takes the same data, but instead of humans looking at the dashboards and making the decisions, AI looks at the dashboards at the back end, directly at the data at the back end, and then run ML algorithms and take the similar decisions, right? So it's human decision versus AI decision, but the data is the backbone in both the cases, right? So the precise answer, Mohsen, to your question is that without data, AI is nothing, right? And that's why we say that garbage in, garbage out, right? So that's the point number one. So I'll give a very basic example. Let's assume that, to further explain this, let's assume that you have a data of crimes in Lahore, right? So you know that in Model Town there were so many crimes, there was a street crime, people were mugged in Valencia, there were issues in DHA, etc. So you have a dashboard. Now if you keep looking at the dashboard for 1 hour for the past 5 years, any sane person, any intelligent person, especially people like chartered accountants who are so much into the numbers, more than anybody else, they would spend half an hour and say, okay, there's a high probability that tomorrow evening or maybe in the next few evenings, in the next 1 week, there would be a mugging incident in Model Town because there's a power outage planned, and I've seen that the trend says that there are a lot of crimes in the mall town after 8 p.m., especially the mugging event. So what you effectively did was that you looked at the dashboard, the numbers for half an hour, created a visualization within your brain, your natural intelligence came into play, and you predicted something, which you can, right? But now let's take this problem to billion times more, right? Scale, in terms of the scale. One person spent 1 hour to predict one crime. But what if you need to predict the crimes of across the world, like whole world, within 2 minutes, within milliseconds? Then you need scale, computing, the power. Then comes AI into play, right? So I hope that the analysis that you did is exactly what AI is doing. The difference is the scale and the computing power that you see. To your second question, Mohsen, I mean, if you talk about real world examples, right? Health is there, right? We talked about health. You know that we are working on something as well. And by the way, we are collaborating with KPMG. So I'll give an example. We're working on a project in which we are trying to predict cancer in mammograms in a very early stage through the power of AI. So what happens is that you take a mammogram, you run AI algorithms, you try to identify if there's a mass there, a cyst there, or for that matter, a calcification there, a micro calcification, a pixel level calcification there or not. Now in 20% of the cases, doctors agree that they can miss picking up cancer in the mammograms or in the histopathological reports as well while they're investigating the tumors using the power of microscope, right? So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to solve that 20%, not 80%. We're trying to lower the margin of error by shrinking that 20% misses to maybe 5% or 3%. So if we're able to do that through the power of AI, then obviously that's a real world example that we're working on, and we can safely say that through the power of artificial intelligence, we are now trying to save human lives, inshallah. Right, so that's another example as well.
Thank you, Iran. So certainly, so the data is prerequisite for anything. So, I think we should be careful about the data. I should be thankful to the data because that's making all the decisions. So before AI, we were analyzing, now AI is analyzing. And you rightly pointed out the garbage in, garbage out, which is very important. And that leads me to my second question. So whenever I go and advise a client, the first thing I ask them basically, do you have any governance in place? Do you have any structure in place? Do you know where exactly you are in terms of data journey before you can use that data for any insights? So data journey is very important for any. So these finance professionals, of course, they're the core backbone of the organization. So I think it's important for them to understand what is the typical data journey for any organization. So Adil, you've been advising a number of clients. So if I ask you briefly explain what is the typical data journey for any organization from generation of data till the use of data for AI or personal use.
Sure. Thank you, Mohsen. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. So Adnan, I think, explained a lot of things very beautifully. So I'll try to briefly explain what the data journey is. Because it's a huge, it can take lectures to explain that. But I'll touch two aspects. First, I think the one is, for example, if I am within an organization, how data-driven I am. That actually is very, very important. So, for example, if I am going to a client and actually helping them answer this question, the success of them is very much dependent on how data-driven they are themselves within the organization. So that's one thing. But coming to the question, so where the first step is, do you make the normal decisions, a company, based on data? Are they collecting data? If they're collecting data, what's the quality of data? And then at this step, the most important part is the governance, the data governance part, what to collect, how to collect it, how to store it. So that is the most important thing. And I explain this as an example of like the parliament of any country, the legislature develops the legislation. They don't have to implement it. And then the UCs or downstream organization in the country, they actually are executors. So the first part is creating the governance, knowing according to your business policies and procedures, and then disseminating them across the organization okay, this is what we have to do and this is how we have to do it. So that's the first part, data collection. But then how do you know what data do you have to collect? That depends on what problem do you have to solve, right? If you want to predict customer churn, or you want to increase customer retention, then obviously you need to have the customer data. Just sales data may not be, just revenue data may not be enough. You would have to know the customer at the nth level, what's the name, what do they buy, when do they buy it. So data collection, garbage in, garbage out, we have actually talked a lot. I think it's a very cliche term, but for whatever we are talking about, industry 4.0 and then 5.0 is here too. It's all about data. It'll be a bit long answer, but there's actually, it's very interesting, there's a lot of money to be made even in data labeling. You know, the data, there's so much data out there that is that can be used, but it cannot be used because it's not labeled. So that's what Adnan and Mohsin meant by garbage in, garbage out. If data is there, but it's not good enough, you can't generate value out of it. So what do you want to, what's the outcome? To get to that outcome, what kind of data do you need? How do you collect it? Ensuring the quality of data is there, and then once you have the data, now what you do? So then you put it, you curate the data so that it's consumable for a data analyst. For example, if you're not using the power of Power BIs or Tableau. So that's the first thing. Okay, you have the quality data, but then you have to automate the process, as Adnan also alluded to. So then you decide what systems you want to use, what softwares, because you have softwares to do the data analysis for you. Then you use that. Before that, you create the pipelines, we call it. I don't want to go into the complex terms. You put data in a consumable form. Now that could be consumed by as simple as an Excel, or it could be used by the software like Tableau and Power BI. So that gives you then kind of descriptive analytics that you can see, okay, this is the data we have and this is what it's showing me and this is what I want to do. Then, once you are there, then you go to the next level of predictive and all the machine learning power comes in, that you can see the dashboards, they're accurate, but you have to spend hours to analyze what they are, Now with AI, I use this term, actually not me, a lot of people across the board, there are systems that would act as co-pilot with you. If you're a marketing manager or if you're a finance manager, their companies are creating products that would help you. They get the data. They also generate what Adnan said, dashboards for you. Now what you do, they will also tell you what to do. They'll give you options. But to get there, it's the entire journey from data collection all the way to curation, creating pipelines and making it usable, and then do it. So it's a long journey. And the most important part, I think, to become a data-driven organization is change management, because unfortunately what happens is that the CEO comes in and say, hey, we are becoming data-driven, and then they bring in consultants and they try their best, and unfortunately it doesn't work, because you have to incentivize people, you have to tell them why is it important for them. And that's where the change management part comes in. Maybe we'll discuss more about it in future. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think data journey is very important. And imagine, most of the big four these days, or the big, the audit practices, their audit software is data driven, right? So imagine if you have bad quality of data, you end up, most likely bad audit and into litigation. So I think journey is very, very important. Thank you. That was very detailed, explained very detailed, Adil. So moving on to Max. Max, I know you are one of us. You are a finance professional, right? So you have worked in investment bank. You're working with the commodity market, energy sector. I mean, you have massive experience from the US within the financial sector. And now what you're trying to do is you're trying to solve a finance problem with the help of data. You're working with a number of clients, hedge funds, and other companies where you're predicting at which price for us to negotiate. That's very, very interesting use case. So if you can share a few examples of, within the finance industry, you have been working on in general, maybe, which for our audience can emphasize how important the data and AI is within the finance industry. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Mohsen. Surely AI has very great inroads into the financial sector. If you look at historically, the first time AI was used is in the hedge fund, right, for the predictive purposes. But now almost every sector of the finance, AI, and especially the reinforcement learning is playing a major part, right? So if you look at the use cases, one simple use case we can look at, there's a one point of AI is like, descriptive, like, describing, finding a needle in a haystack, right? So when we are in a trading firms, right, so every day the biggest problem they have explain P&L, right? So there is a shift in the P&L or shift in the portfolio value, right? So there can be hundreds of different factors can be counting in, right? Because it depends is that how complex that trade is, if it's a financial or is a formula-based trade, right? There can be so many underlying derivatives to value a trade, right? So historically, the people, the folks in risk management, the people with the finance background used to, like one example was Monte Carlo simulation, right? So overnight, they used to run Monte Carlo simulation. They try different simulation and see what the value of the portfolio might be located and where it's being shifting, right? So all that things are being handed over to the machine learning models, and which is way easier. So from explain P&L to looking in where is the shift is happening, that's where, the other panel was explaining about moving from explain to diagnostic approach. So basically understanding how this shift is happening and what causing is a diagnostic, right? And the second part is that what else can happen, right? So simple example, let's say, we have an oil cargo and the oil cargo is moving from somewhere in South America and the destination is, somewhere in Europe, right? So when the crude oil vessel is in the open ocean, it has a lot of risks being encountering, right? And on top of that, due to, the distance of the voyage, it might take weeks and days, the value of the products can also be changed at the destination, right? So how to predict that, what the value might be look like, right? And what can be my cash flows, and same thing, what other biggest thing is like, for example, demurrage, right? So what events can cause my demurrage, right? So all these calculations are being done by creating those machine learning models, right? Which is an AI, right? So basically, if you look at the machine learning models are simply understanding what factors can impact the output, and you take those factors, and the most important thing is that as much data you have, like for example, like we work in Texas, so for whole state of Texas, we have to work on predicting what will be the power demand for next 7 days, right? Because that's a big financial exposure to the companies who are trading power, buying power mean electricity, right? So how you do that, right? So we take all different input factors, all different of weather, the holiday factor, the month, the day, and everything, putting into the machine and looking into what the past performance was. That machine is going to tell us that what the future value might look like, right? And the last example I want to give is that, which is very heavily used now, is the anomaly detection. Previously, anomaly detection was using IoT devices on manufacturing and detecting like a preemptive action. But now anomaly detection has a big part in financial market, and especially on the audit side. Basically, anomaly detection is looking at the patterns of some transactions which are being happening in the past, and where is the deviation, right? So whenever there is a deviation, there is an alert, and the alert will tell you that you need to move into diagnostic stage now. So that's why anomaly detection is very critical in a banking sector, where there are millions of millions transactions happening every day, and continuously 24/7 running a machine can easily detect those anomalies, and preemptive actions can be taken.
Thank you. So they're very useful. This is just to explain to you guys how there are plenty of use cases, and AI and data is there to empower you. So you shouldn't be scared of it. Get used to it, learn it, and then get empowered. You'll be certainly a much better CFO with data knowledge than the one who doesn't have. Please.
I just would like to share one, because you're working with so many problems. Some problems are very interesting. You could have not thought someone is going to do that. So we have a client. They said we are using cough to detect COVID. It was 2.5, 3 years ago, and I was like, really? Like, how would someone would cough and you'll tell whether the person has COVID or not? And they did it. I mean, they're based out of US, but first, I mean, now COVID is not a big issue right now. But now how they're using, because it has implication on finance and insurance industry in the US. Now they are selling that product, but to companies, big corporates in the US, because they have a very huge insurance bills. That test your people, they cough, and if they have flu, so they can detect flu ahead of time. Then you ask them people to not either come to office or so that they stay home, and it doesn't increase. And the impact is financial, because in US the healthcare industry works very differently, and insurance bills are a lot. So I'm just giving you an example. And what's happening is your cough is an audio file which gets converted into data, and that data again is being used to. So I'm sorry I took it, but it was such a.
That's a very good example, Adil. I think that just shows how powerful data is. I mean, who would have thought with the help of data you can detect if someone has a COVID or not? I mean, this is very excellent use case. This just shows how powerful it is. Before we move to the next question, just so at the end of the session, we'll spend around 15 minutes answering your questions. So if you're unable to scan the QR code, you can just go to slido.com and write #QAISC. So #QAISC, and just ask questions, and we'll pick 4 or 5 questions towards the end of this discussion. So Umair, I know, so he's one of us, by the way. So Dr. Umair is a PhD in finance. He's been doing great work in LUMS, helping chartered accountants and other finance professionals to equip themselves with the analytics knowledge. So you've been interacting with a lot of financial professionals. I know some of your students are chartered accountants. Some of your students are even working professional. So when you interact with them, people who has passed your course, if you can explain how analytics or data empowered them to make better decisions, especially the people like me who doesn't have any data knowledge come to you, and what do you do to them so they can make better decisions in terms of finance?
Right. Thank you very much. We reach out to people like you to come and empower them. So that's one. But I mean, taking a cue from earlier comments, my sister in UK, she's a pathologist, and she's leading an effort in her hospital to use AI for reading the reports and the slides and everything. And from one perspective, it seems that she is preparing her own replacement. She'll be replaced by the system that she's creating. And another perspective is that, she's repositioning herself to be able to use that system. So as earlier comments by Adnan and Adil, if you don't use data analytics, and the problem with the younger people now, with you people, is that the pace of change of technology is so rapid now that you have to retool yourself every 5-10 years. It used to be, and I think Maqbool Sahab would remember, if you pick out a book, auditing book from 50 years ago, there would be a chapter on analytical procedures. So we've been using analytics all along, and we've been using statistics for finance and accounting purposes all along. It's just that now we have the computing power, the processing power, the storage, the communications are very fast. So all of it, what it means now is that you cannot rely on one skill and spend your career on it. It used to be that you remember, Excel, and then you'll progress and everything. You know how a manual transmission car works as a mechanic. and you can spend a whole career fixing the cars. Now, then you've got automatic, and then you've got the transmission, smart transmissions, and then the rate of change of technology is so fast that if mechanics don't retool themselves every 5-10 years, they won't be able to survive. So same goes with finance and accounting, but people that the things are evolving so fast that we have to keep up. So without a data background, the first suggestion would be get a data background, and that's and data background is what grounding in stats and economics, and I think ICAP is doing a very good job of grounding the people, the students in these two disciplines, because this is the basis of all the work that Adil and Adnan are doing. So in a sense that what we do is we create that grounding, and then we send the students over to companies like Data Pilot to train them on real life projects. So that's the application side. So essentially what we are looking at is people have talked about garbage in, garbage out, but also any smartest artificial intelligence system would be as smart as the person using it, or as dumb as the person using it. So if you don't understand what's happening, what the system is doing, then you cannot use it effectively. So you cannot go to a doctor and say, give me medicine, without telling what are the symptoms. So you need to be able to read the business problems and then translate them in a language that the computer would understand. And that's critical. An exposure to functions other than accounting, that's critical, because without that you don't have a understanding of the business and how to write business problems or how to read business problems. And then a grounding in economics and statistics. So without that, it would be increasingly difficult for you to survive.
Thank you. So you're doing a great job, by the way. I mean, I think you're certainly producing better professionals. So you guys already know, because you train in audit, tax, advisory, so you already know business problems. If you understand the power of data, I think you guys will be able to solve their problem much better than these guys, to be honest, with their help, of course, because I mean, they would need your help. They would come to you, they understand the problem you're trying to solve, and then you would be more close to processes. So I have a number of questions. I think we're short of time. So let's move to, I'm going to skip few. So let's move to next topic, which is kind of buzzword these days. The talk of the town is generative AI, and you slightly touched on that, Adnan. So just explain, so you explain what AI is, it's beautifully explained. So just maybe in the same way, if you can explain for our audience what generative AI is and how it's different from, the other AI techniques.
Great. Thank you very much, Mohsen. So AI key, there are three branches to AI primarily, right? One is the machine learning, tabular machine learning, I would say. We all talked about it. We take the crime data, we take medical history data, we try to find out something that is going to happen potentially in the future. That is machine learning, number crunching, statistical analysis, classifiers and whatnot. The other branch is computer vision, which I talked about earlier. I'm just building the story here because I need to explain you the generative AI, but I need to set the base first. So the other part is the computer vision, in which you use the cameras of the computer to record some information which is visual, a video, an image, anything, and then you run AI algorithms to, using the pixel level details of what is happening in a particular scene, you identify what is potentially going to happen. So for instance, if a person who has a gun enters into an ATM room, the ATM camera will automatically identify and raise an alarm, because you are running computer vision algorithms on top of the feed that is coming from the CCTV cameras. That is computer vision branch of AI. The third branch is generative AI. Generative AI is very, very exciting these days. Why? Because this is the power of AI to generate new stuff, to generate new content, right? So for instance, I'll give an example. We are actually, 10x is working on the company I'm working for in 10x, it is working with a company that is based out of Italy. What the problem we're trying to solve using the power of generative AI is going to help you understand what it is in a very simple way. So they have content writers and medical practitioners who read the medical journals, right? There are, by the way, 2 million new medical journals being published on yearly basis. And problem is that the doctors don't have time to go through a journal which has 80 pages and infographics and so many mathematics and numbers and all those things. So their content writers and the medical researchers, they read those journals, every bit of the journals, and they manually summarize into 2 pages and create some infographics as well, very exciting. And through their app, the doctors can subscribe to their application, pay them dollars a yearly basis, and then read 2 pages summary of the journals instead of having to read the entire journal, because doctors don't have time. That is a business problem, right? Up till now, they were using content writers and researchers to do this. Now they came to us that, okay, now that we have got Chat GPT, we have got generative AI, can you use AI and bots and natural language processing capabilities of AI to read the journals and generate 2-page summaries instead of a human being generating the summary? So what we did with them was that we worked with them for almost 8 weeks, and as we speak now, alhamdulillah, we are now able to generate summaries through the power of AI. So imagine 2 million journals being summarized by people and 2 million journals being summarized within a few hours by AI machines. So this is the scale that we're looking at. So this is one example of generative AI in which AI is now generating new content instead of just analyzing new content. That is one. Number 2 example of generative AI is that if I want to come up with a marketing video of company ABC, my friend from Data Pilot is here and he wants to come up with a marketing video of Data Pilot. So the conventional way would be I would hire marketing people, they would bring in all those cameras, they'll hire characters, people who have good English communication skills, they will pay them dollars and they will memorize the script and say it out loud, and people will record with all those lightings and everything. Such a hassle, very cost consuming, very pricey, very time consuming as well. Now imagine generative AI will just ask my friend Adil to give me what text do you want to say, pronounce and say it loud. He will give the text, and he'll use a software which is an AI-driven generative AI software. He'll say, okay, I want a female to read that text out. I want this text to be said out loud in, and read out loud in a British accent, right? And I want that to be done for 1 minute or so. So that's the speed and the pace of the job. Within few minutes, a generative AI software will create a marketing video for him. So what happens is that the text will be converted into voice. There are a lot of voices, there's a pool of voices available, British accent, American accent, whatnot, a typical Pakistani Indian accent and whatnot. And then you can run that over through AI models. And a simulator, an avatar basically, an avatar will say it exactly with lip syncing to what the voice is. And there was a famous video from President Obama in which Obama was made to say 4 different things, 4 entirely different things through the power of AI, right? So imagine now a marketing video in which Obama is, hypothetically speaking, obviously, Obama is promoting Data Pilot. Imagine that. So this is the power of generative AI. So I hope I'm able to clarify.
Yeah, certainly. So it's certainly powerful. So, but I think, we shouldn't be afraid of it. So when ChatGPT came, a lot of us thought it's going to replace all the programmers. But it's actually empowering all the programmers rather than, instead of the program they used to write in, say, 10 days, they're now able to write in, a day or a few hours instead. So.
One thing I would like to add is, which is very pertinent, yes, the power is there, but the challenge is there as well. Because we all know deep fake, right? Deep fake is when these technologies create a video about you, which is not true. So imagine that I am not against a particular country, but gentleman here sitting uses AI and uses the voice, my lecture from today, takes the word out, my voice out, and my actual, presentation style out, and extract the features and creates a video in which Adnan is speaking against any particular country. So how will I on earth I will prove myself being innocent that I did not say that? So the problem is that with these technologies being advanced, we will not be able to trust each other anymore if we don't govern. And that's where the point that he raised, that with all these power, the data governance come into play as well. If we are not governing it, then we are in a terrible situation, unfortunately.
So there's certainly ethical challenge. I mean, we're supposed to. Please.
Yeah, and I'd just like to add, because Adnan gave an example of a client coming to him, because we for smaller companies, actually, we are using generative AI to do our stuff, fairly quickly. Also, we have developed our own internal generative AI bot, which is helping my engineers to do their stuff, if not 10x, at least 5 times faster. And it's a similar applies on the financial industry as well. Yeah.
So Max, again, let's move to finance. If I ask you, within the Gen AI domain, what sort of trends you see in coming years, the Gen AI helping the finance professionals, be it trading, accounting, auditing, anything related to what sort of trends do you see in coming years, Gen AI for the finance industry?
Yeah, sure. So in artificial intelligence, there's another part called augmented data science. Augmented data science is the next level where the dimension are very complex, right? So let's say if you have a problem, we can easily solve X and Y, then it's X and Y and Z and many other directions, so it's become difficult, right? And that's where the Gen AI or augmented data science come, which actually help us to understand into the different dimensions of the same problem in a finance, right? So let's say, for example, going back into a finance, like in in the region of the quantitative trading, or for example, like when they were doing like a Bitcoin currency trading, and how you can mitigate your risk, right? What amount of hedge you need to put it in there. So all these becomes like in the phase of the augmented data science or Gen AI, right? So basically what Gen AI is doing that, I can try an example. Let's say, for example, someone is booking a very complex, some sort of vanilla options, right? And in vanilla option, there can be so many different possibilities, and they can have throw different other things into it to mitigate the risks that, right? But the Gen AI will help that. It will take 2 steps further, and it will recommend that what other things we can do to mitigate that position we have in the market, right? So basically is going and generating a new type of, you can say, a structured deal from the finance point of view, which can mitigate the risk, and it will ensure more value of the product, right? In banking sector, they're also using Gen AI whenever they have new financial packages being offered, right? So there is a limitation like how far we can go in, but there are some other dark corners where the light can be thrown, right? So Gen AI is just like an augmented data science is take next step and help us generate more profitable, packages or the services for the client, where you can help them maybe saving the money, or maybe preparing for retirement, or maybe taking any sort of financial position where there's any sort of risk involved.
Thank you. So that's a very useful example. That's the future. I'm not sure what's going to come in the next 3-4 years, but for now we have Gen AI, and it's very powerful, very strong, and we can use it. To be honest, I use it at least, to do my job better. So we discussed. I wanted to discuss in bit more detail the ethical part, right? So you mentioned deepfake. That's using technology in a wrong way. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I was reading somewhere memes that someone is asking ChatGPT, what are the websites to avoid to download the torrents, and they give you the list of all the websites. But let's take a step further. So you guys have been working with finance professionals, creating models, be it audit, automated accounting, identifying tax frauds, banking frauds, and you can easily create a biasness in the model, right? So that's a very important aspect of ethical, aspects of the AI. So what are the challenges? So Adil, if I can start with you. So what are the challenges do you see from ethics perspective, and how we can address those challenges? We discussed deepfake, we discussed model biasness, we discussed data integrity and privacy. How can we address those challenges, especially with the pace the technology is evolving every day?
So I will just start with an example. I think there was this Tesla who hit a black person because the data the model was trained on had mostly white people. So I was just talking to someone, and the reason was that, this is also, I think there are technology especially, and there's a lot of debate going on that a lot of jobs would be gone, and there are risks, right? So we have to embrace them. It's having an open discussion that what the risks are, and in particularly now, at least with our customers, we talk about these things, and deep fakes and all, you cannot stop some things. This will happen, and I actually know that it's happening, I mean, in Pakistan and elsewhere. It's just that what do we advocate, and what do we believe in, and as a practitioner, talking to the customer, making sure, because the problem, this problem is because of AI, right? So, and AI, as Adnan said and Mohsen said, we need data for that. So making sure, again, data governance. So what are you collecting, and if you're collecting, making sure that there is no bias. There will be outliers, but there is a way to handle them. So it's a lot of research and critical thinking involved in to think about what sorts of data you need to collect and making sure that there are no biases. So because if you have that, at least you are doing your job. There would still be issues. I don't know, Adnan might talk about it. I don't know if there is a way to right now eradicate deepfake, because it is going to happen, and that's why there is dark web which is running for, I don't know. So I think make sure 2-3 things. Due diligence, realizing the risk. I think the problem is people just say, no, there's no risk. There is a risk. There's a huge risk. And make sure you have the governance model around to, to make sure that it's minimized. It may not go to zero, that it's minimized. Adnan.
Good. Do you want to add anything, Adnan?
Yeah, just one thing. I mean, when we were training the algorithm for the golf technology company, right, one of the biggest problems was that there was not enough data for the female golfers. Now, if we have developed the world's first AI caddy in the US, and if that caddy is working for men and not giving good advice for female, it's a bias problem. It's unethical. Because a female on the field, if she's not able to get the right advice and she's playing against a male and he's getting the right advice, it's unethical, right? Now, the problem comes back to what Adil mentioned, that for that, in order for my world's first AI caddy to be treating men and women equally, I need to have the enough labeled data and training set for women as well. But unfortunately, I don't have that much data available, because females are relatively lesser in numbers who are playing golf. So now here exactly comes some issues that you need to highlight, but then you need to be very vocal about them. Okay, we are about to release this caddy, but this caddy may have some bias, but the reason is not the intent of the company who is launching this caddy. The reason is because there is no data available. So our intent is to ensure that as we grow this caddy, we will try to get as much data for the female golfers as possible, but that may not happen 3 years from now. So these are the statements that need to come directly from the top management of such forward-looking companies, because otherwise people will claim easily that there's a bias in the application, and that's wrong, right? So at times there needs to be some understanding on our part as well that there would be bias if the data set is not available.
And I'd like to add one more thing which is very important and a very growing field, which is of synthetic data. So as Adnan mentioned, now there are companies. There's this huge company called Gretel.ai. It was founded by Google's head of HR, Laszlo. So what they're doing is they can create synthetic data. It's not real data, but if you don't have, like, if you need more female population in the data that Adnan mentioned, Gretel software can do that for you with labeling, and also, and those are the companies that actually trying to solve those issues. So again, a very good field actually too.
Very good. So all we can do is be good citizen, aware of the risk out there, and bring some governance, and maybe the regulators are, I think, already sitting. I heard the top technology gurus are sitting in US and coming up with, doing some brainstorming of the regulation. So let's move on to, let's spend the last 5-6 minutes guiding all our audience how they can equip themselves to be ready for the future. So Dr. Umair, if I can start with you. So a lot of my colleagues, so I work in Big Four, so a lot of my colleagues, when I discuss with them, they are not even aware of what Gen AI is. They're not even aware of, what's cognitive, analytics is, a lot of other things, right? So what these guys can do to make sure they are aware of what's happening in the technology. Do they need to come up with a strategy? Do they need to, reach out to any resources you recommend to be, so they are, aware of what's happening around there, especially in the finance world within the domain of AI and data.
Right. So for them, it would be better to start small and prioritize. Just because there is a technology available, it doesn't mean you have to use it. So ICAP could use retina eye scan for marking attendance of you people, but that's just because it's there, do we have to use it? That's one. Two, education and training, because again, retooling, reskilling is going to be necessary going forward. We are not going to stick to what we know. And we used to spend a whole career on that. So retooling, reskilling, and it's quite, ChatGPT and YouTube, and there are so many resources now available online and free that we don't have to spend a lot of fortune on them. That's one that. For smaller organizations, collaborate with educational institutions. A great resource. You've got people doing CS and mathematics and stats and accounting and finance. You can have them, you co-opt them on your projects and so forth. Data Pilot is doing that with us, having people. So it's a win-win situation for the university and the organization. So a knowledge exchange there, co-opting students like that. Then there are relatively cheaper options available also. You could use cloud-based tools, which are pay as you use, rather than buying the whole license. You could use those. But I think in our society with the huge young population, collaboration with educational institutions, that would be very beneficial for smaller organizations who do not have in-house capabilities. So bring in people who want to do a project and have them do the projects for them.
Oh, absolutely. I think the first one, you need to have an interest. So I'm an accountant, I'm not a data professional, but I am running a data consulting, right? So the reason is I have interest. So I find a time and I go and read and do research, and that's how I'm able to increase my knowledge. I think creating interest is one thing, and then spending a few hours every week, and then collaborating with, of course, education institutions. So Max, if I can ask you, so there are a lot of tools out there, right? So there are open source tools. If you can explain what open source is for a lot of our audience also. There are a lot of tools out there. I think the people would be aware with Power BI and Tableau and Click, which is BI tools, the Python for data analysis, for example. There are huge amount of tools. I don't think they need to learn everything. But if someone has interest, for example, right? So what do you recommend for someone who doesn't have a data background, someone who use Excel for the data analysis, for example? So if they want to move away from Excel, they need to analyze 50,000 rows and 5,000 columns, for example. What can they do? What are the basic tools they can use to to learn and do the data analysis?
Yeah, sure. So basically, the field of data analytics and artificial intelligence has a very wider scope, right? So you heard use cases here from health to finance to manufacturing, so all over the places, right? So you guys being in a financial sector and going to build your career in finance and accounting and audit, it's good to be specific first to your own domain, right? That's very important. Because if you try to cross out and start learning about AI related to a COVID, it's not going to help you, right? So understanding your use case is very important, right? Next step is that, like whenever you're doing something, because see, the AI is here to help us to solve problem in a more smarter way. right? So let's say, for example, even if you're doing a small analysis, I remember from my audit time, I used to go Bata, and then, I was a junior, so they want me to look into the marketing expenses and do an analysis, right? So even if you're doing that, just think that how the data analytics, the built-in tools, and AI can help you to reduce that time to do an analysis, right? So basically what you do, right? Basically the most important thing, you're gonna see a trend, right? You're gonna see where is the pattern being changed from previous year or previous 3 year, and which area it looks like they're spending more, or where you feel that, there's some ambiguity is there. So the next thing comes is that where you learn. So first understand what is your use case is really relate to your domain, and you want to solve the business challenge. And now you look for the tools, right? So you don't have to be a developer, right, in order to do it. Like you don't have to be learn Python, because even you can find so many tools which are already built with Python, which you can apply that, right? Most important thing is just to learn the basics. Once you understand the foundation and your question, what you want to solve it. So where are the different avenues? The venues I really found very good is one of that is edx.org, right? Probably you guys already know. So edx.org give you free courses from all the top universities, right? So I prefer them over Coursera, because EDX courses are very high quality courses, and they are very, very domain specific, right? Another courses which I was very interested is from NYU, New York University, which is also Ivy School. They have School of Finance has a special programs which are free, and they are related to, like I mentioned before, reinforcement learning in finance, and that's really apply into your domain, right? And other places are like Coursera, you can do it. But in the end, the only way you can learn this data analytics, and I don't think you can go away from that, right? You must have to learn it to improve your work, bring your efficiency. The way you can learn it, take a business case, take a challenge, and try not to solve in a traditional way, but try to apply that tool. Even if you look at Microsoft Excel, even give you a tool, right, to forecast something or create some stress analysis or something, right? So that's the one thing. And second is use online free resources. And now they are almost everywhere you can find. Our top universities are giving you, even myself, even now I take courses, free courses from MIT, right? MIT online is like a free courses from them. You can hear these lectures free. And that's the best source to learn. So,
Thank you. And again, I'll urge that there should be intention to learn. If there's intention to learn, you'll find a way to learn. So we'll take a few questions from the audience. So I have the questions here with me. Adnan, there's one first question for you. I think we're supposed to discuss this, and the question also came from the audience. It's very close use case to your heart. So fraud detection and deep learning, right? So the question is basically how AI and data can be used for fraud detection in banks. So if you can explain maybe briefly how deep learning, for example, or the machine learning can be used for fraud detection.
All right, great. Thank you very much for posing this question. Before I answer and get to the meat of this question, right, first let's understand what deep learning does, right? So basically, you show an apple to a deep learning algorithm and say it's an apple. So what deep learning does is it starts extracting features at the back end without telling you. It starts extracting features of that apple. Okay, the color is greenish, it could be reddish. The aspect ratio is like 1.2. This is the height, this is the width. There are curves, it's spherical, whatever it is, it's the 3D view of it. It starts extracting the features at the back end with a lot of mathematical and calculations, which is kind of a black box because there's less explainability in deep learning, right? However, next time you change the color of the apple and show another apple to the deep learning will automatically start picking up those new features as well, because you're labeling it, you're telling the deep learning model this is an apple. The third time you show it's an unlabeled apple now, you show an apple and the deep learning will pick, okay, this is an apple. Because it was trained with the labeled data, with the classified data, with the labeled data, that and it was able to extract the features. Now, This was a very simple example. Apple has nothing to do with this conference, right? Coming to the financial fraud. Let's assume that you are trying to identify you are in an anti-money laundering department and you are sitting in Denmark and you are trying to assess billion transactions and trying to identify your job given to you by your bosses to identify 20,000 or 20, let's say, 20 potential AML, money laundering, ML transaction, money laundering transactions from the billions of records. If you really want to do it with your eyes and ears, then go look at a billion records, spend next 30 days and nights 24/7 and you'll be able to find maybe 10 or 20 records. If you want to do it with machine learning, not deep learning, simple tabular machine learning, try running statistical algorithms, try different techniques, you'll have some good explainability as well, and you may come up with some good insights as well. But if you want to do this with machine learning, deep learning, you need to have a proper labeled data. So the first thing that the deep learning algorithm will ask you is that, okay, tell me from your historical records, last 10 years of records, tell me actual money laundering transactions and help tag them to me. Give them the features, give them every single bit of that transaction that happened in the history with a tag that this is a money laundering proven transaction. So that next time when you show 5 unseen transactions to the deep learning algorithms, they will automatically try to match the features, run math in the black box environment and try to pick if it's a money laundering transaction or not, like it was able to pick the apple even if the color was changed, because 99% of the features were resembling an apple, aspect ratio, color, spherical, etc. whatnot. So coming to the main point, the reason I always go into the very basics is because it's very easy for me to spell out some jargons, some very catchy words, prove that I know AI, and leave this room with you guys being confused. The reason I want to go to the very basics and very simple is that once I was sitting there, and when I was listening to people, I was not able to understand. And then I had to go through all these courses that our distinguished panelist is mentioning, right? So try to break everything into simple categories of problems and learn one by one, and trust me, within few days you'll be a master of them. Not a master, but you will be a very relevant person in that field, and then you can do mastery obviously in the years to come. So yes, fraudulent transactions, be it tax, be it audit, be it anti-money laundering, they could be identified through deep learning as long as you have the training set available, which means you have the transactions, all the features, detailed data, quality data, no garbage, and you have the tags that it's a proven fraudulent transaction. One more example very quickly. Let's assume that there is an import bill. So you're importing goods, and to not optimize, let's be more harsh, to come up with a fraud in the taxation transactions, you show that this medical supply is being imported from a country A which has lesser taxation as per our import policy. However, in actuality, that drug is not coming from that country, that is coming from another country, and importing from that country means a bigger tax amount in Pakistan. Let's assume. Now there are frauds. If you have those invoices available which were fraudulent, you can send those invoices to a deep learning algorithm and say, next time when I show you an import bill or import transaction, try to pick up a fraudulent transaction based on a wrong country being tagged intentionally for that capsule. So for instance, there's a capsule, the capsule name is ABC. The weight is 0.2 whatever unit. The color is bluish, right? The potency is this. The size is this, the dimension is this, the source of country is this, and the number of capsules is this, and the price is X dollars. All of these become the features to the algorithm. And the invoice number is this, and the company who's importing is ABC. Next time, if you tell it was actually a fraudulent transaction, next time what deep learning algorithm assesses is that, okay, this company has done one fraud in the past, so I will give some weight to it that this could be a fraudulent transaction. That is just one bit of it. The second could be, the capsule is not blue. These capsules, as per the medical data, is always green, should always be green. Why is it blue? The flag raises. The deep learning tells you there's something wrong with it. So the point and the price, this is not 5,000 rupees per leaf capsule. This is just 20 rupees per leaf capsule. Why is it tagged as 5,000 rupees? There's something wrong in this. Last, this country does not even make these capsules. Why is it tagged to, for instance, Singapore? Singapore is not into this medical supplies. So what happens at the back end is exactly what happens in your brain. This is natural intelligence which has been instilled into machines as artificial intelligence. So what neurons are doing as electrical impulses is exactly what is being done in artificial intelligence as neural networks. So I hope that answers your question. This is more complex than this, obviously, but I tried to explain you to my best possible ability.
Thank you, Dena, very useful. I think we'd love talking about data. We can spend another 2 days, but unfortunately we're out of time, and I've been receiving at least 10 texts from our colleagues that we need to stop. So thank you, Max, Adnan, Adil, Umair. I mean, it's been an amazing session. I've learned a lot. I'm sure our colleagues, our audience must have learned a lot. So thanks for coming to be part of ICAP event. I look forward to see you again at some stage in future, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mohsin. Thank you. Thank you.